What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 31st episode of the PlayStation Drive. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Turford, the man on the mongoose, and I'm joined, as always, by the man himself, Matt Siminsky. Matt, how are you doing on this very, warm and rainy December 16th, my friend?
Ryan, it is Spider-Man No Way Home Day. I am exuberant. I am ecstatic. I am tired, but I'm also so hyped because I can't wait. I can't wait, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, if it makes you feel better, I've already been spoiled on the movie by YouTube, so thanks, YouTube. Yeah, I know people are very excited about it. Our Discord is buzzing with excitement today, and I know by the time people are actually watching this, you will have seen the movie, which is exciting.
Yes.
And I mean, it's also another big movie day too, because the big premiere for the Matrix movie is also happening tonight too, which I was originally supposed to go to, but I was actually not able to attend. So there you go.
Sorry, buddy.
No, it's all good. But yeah, things are happening in movies. But this isn't a movie podcast, Matt. This is a PlayStation podcast. So we should probably talk about PlayStation a little bit. So let's clean the garage. Of course, folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways to do that. Number one, if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, all the things people on YouTube tell you to do. Also, if you are listening on podcast feeds and you want to subscribe to us, again, subscribe to us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all the places where you find podcasts, so check us out there. Or if you want early access to this show, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/YumiCapri. Throw a little tip in the old tip jar and out comes content. And then last thing I wanted to bring up, Matt, which is very exciting. The Yumi Capris are happening on December 31st. We actually recorded it last night. So it actually happened in the past, but folks at home are going to be able to hear our Game of the Year show, which features not only myself and you, but also Consul Cato, Sean Capri, and Garrett Bland on one show together, talking about our favorite games of the year. I know.
A crossover?
The greatest Yumi Capri crossover of epic proportions. The Yumi Capris coming at the end of the year. So I'm very excited for everyone to hear that conversation. So make sure to look out for that on the podcast feed, especially since this will be the last time we do a normal one of these shows before the end of the year. So I wanted to make sure to kind of promote that, since that'll be on the PlayStation Drive feed towards the end of the year as well. But patrons get it 3 days early. So if you are an early access patron, you get that show on December 28th, including the video version, which will actually be up for you early as well, which we don't do at all. So that'll be a nice treat for patrons as well. But anyways, Matt, let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It's time for the playlist, and let's talk about some of the games we played this week. So I'll start with you, my friend. What'd you play?
Yeah, I'll start with the one, because I see that we have one on the list that we both played, so I'll start with the one that we didn't. I jumped into 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim.
Yes.
Yeah, I got back from Mexico, and I was kind of like, I could do more Horizon. I was looking for something that I didn't really know what I was looking for, and then 13 Sentinels was sitting there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hop in. And Ryan, I can't tell you the last time I had a situation where I just sat down and played for 2 hours, and my brain was off the entire time because I was so completely enthralled in what was going on. I think it was a mixture of I was so tired, but I was also so much enjoying what was going on screen that I completely forgot that I was a human. I completely forgot that I existed, and I was just existing in 13 Sentinels. So just a couple hours in, I've seen the prologue for 4 or 5 of the characters so far. I want to say something along those lines.
Yeah.
The writing is fantastic so far. The art is just staggeringly beautiful. I cannot believe how good this game looks. It's so pretty. And combat wise, I was immediately overwhelmed, just because I was kind of wait, is this turn-based? Is this not? And as you kind of find that active time battle system almost, that's this in between, that once I figured it out, I was kind of okay, I understand what this is, and we were kind of off to the races from there. I just wish that it was a little bit better explained up front, because I was just starting to getting shot and getting blown up, and I was like, what? I can't even do anything. And then I figured out what was happening. But so far the game is beautiful, the writing is fantastic, and I'm already completely invested in what this game is, and I can't wait to spend more time with it. It's really good, Ryan. I'm thankful that you reminded me of it, because it's been on my radar for a while, and then your recent talk about it, I remember we had a conversation about it, brought me back to it, and I'm very excited to continue my time with it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Again, it's a game that I really recommend for people to check out, because I think it's an amazing game that blends, again, visual novel elements with real, almost real-time strategy in a way. It's not a full real-time strategy game like you kind of alluded to, Matt. It's more of a tactical, turn-based one that just happens to play in real time in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think the game is excellent. And you're right. I definitely think that the game doesn't do an amazing job as teaching you that elements, but I think it's like it's easy to pick up on what you're supposed to do. So even if you fail maybe your first time playing, you're most likely not going to fail again. So
yeah,
I think it's
one of those things. Yeah, I think it's like one of those things. Once it clicks, it makes sense, and it doesn't take long to click. But like the first couple minutes was like, wait, what's happening? But yeah, it's awesome. And the other one that we both played, which I'm sure we'll talk about, the Matrix Awakens.
Yep.
I was blown away with how good this looks. I really can't believe how incredible everything looks. The lighting, the graphics, everything. Just it was so much fun. And like there were points when like, you know, Keanu does his whole I'm a real person, but I'm not a real person, but I'm a real person. Like switching back and forth in between, it was almost indistinguishable at certain sections. If this is like the future of Unreal 5 and if this is kind of where we're headed, then it's incredible. I kept thinking like how much better can graphics really get? You know what I mean? I don't want them to be, you know, 1-to-1 because there's this uncanny valley thing that I always thought was going to be a thing. But this looks fantastic. The world is beautiful. And then like I do wish there was a little bit more to it. I really appreciated it for what it was. You know, the simple shooting section and just kind of walking around the city and being able to drive around a little bit was really cool. But I do wish there was a little more to it. But yeah, it's beautiful and I was blown away. I'm not much one for that's like, oh, I need the best graphics ever, but this is an exciting thing. What about yourself, Ryan? I know you played it too. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, same way. Like I was totally blown away by it. I talked about it on the Xbox Drive yesterday with Sean, but like I really couldn't believe what I was seeing, especially with like when you watch a video like the Digital Foundry kind of breakdown of it, where they kind of break down what sections are like pre-recorded video and then which sections aren't. And then how I wasn't really able to tell through the moments where I was playing, like what was real and what wasn't. But then seeing it afterwards and how close it was, like I couldn't believe how close to reality it was. Like especially because like there were certain sections even where it's like when they had like the multiple versions of like Trinity or Neo walking around, for example. Some of those were like full motion video, but most of them were like generated in the world. But it was like it would be very difficult for like the human eye to break without like stopping and going frame by frame to like pick out which ones of those clones were shot on camera and which weren't, because they blended in so well. Yeah, it was like super interesting to see. And yeah, like the car chase stuff, yes, it's kind of this on rails kind of goofy segment, but I really loved that section and seeing and just imagining the possibilities of what that would be like if you had like full control of, you know, the aiming reticle and then what else they could maybe throw into a sequence like that. So, and then thinking about maybe how that could be applied to future games, like that gets me really excited. Like I love just walking around the world of Matrix. And it ultimately, the thing that it really just made me want most is a new Matrix game, because we haven't had one since the Matrix Online, the Matrix MMO. Was the last Matrix video game we had, which was on PC. But then before that, we had the Enter the Matrix, which was like about like two of the characters from the Matrix Reloaded, and then the Matrix: The Path of Neo. Both of those were on the PlayStation 2. So it's been a long time since we've had a Matrix game. But I'm like, they could after this, I'm like, they could totally do an awesome Matrix game, and it would probably be pretty cool. So
right.
Yeah, I can't believe they have never revisited that idea. But I think like, yeah, it was kind of the perfect pairing of like the perfect IP to show off this like really like groundbreaking engine. So folks at home, if you haven't tried this out and you maybe watched a YouTube video of it and you're like, that looks fine, I guess. No, play it on your 4K TV on your PlayStation 5 and let it soak all in, because that's the only way you'll be able to appreciate something like that. And I said this to Sean yesterday on the show, but I'm going to say it here as well. Like, even though I've been the type of person who's been on board with the idea of us, you know, bringing games to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, when something like this comes along, I'm like, yeah, I think it's time to stop developing PlayStation 4 games and kind of move the focus to PlayStation 5 specifically. Because imagining what they can do with technology like this would never run on, you know, PlayStation 4. So I think maybe it's time to kind of leave those consoles behind a bit, I think.
Well said. I agree. Like if this is the potential for the future, I feel like it's been a few years now. The only asterisk I would say is I would still like stuff to come out until these consoles are readily available, because that's the only thing. But again, development takes a long time. Hopefully in the next few years, by something like this would be ready, people will be able to get their hands on these without an issue. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. Let's get into the future, Ryan. It's time to step into the Matrix.
Well, and especially like with with our current slate of PlayStation games coming up with God of War Ragnarok and Horizon and Gran Turismo all set to come out this year on PlayStation 4, I think that'll be like hopefully be the last batch of like Sony first party games coming to PlayStation 4, and then beyond that, you know, in 2023, hopefully the PlayStation 5 is more readily available then. I mean, we can all hope anyways. And then at that point, then you won't have that problem. You won't have the feeling of missing out anyways of not being able to get the console. But then beyond that, of course, all of my time has been sunk into Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. I've been playing it nonstop ever since the game came out. As long as I can get through the queue, because sometimes you're 5,000 to 7,000 players deep in the queue, and then you get to like the top 100 count of the queue, and then you get an error code and it boots you out, and then you're back at the beginning of the queue again, and it usually takes you about 3 hours to get there. So but as long as you sign, but I found the trick is you just sign in at like 9 in the morning and then just stay logged in the entire day, and then that usually averts the situation. But I actually finished it. I was blown away by it. I couldn't believe all of the ways that the Square Enix managed to tie the story together with this game, as well as where they went with the story, because they went to places I was not expecting them to go. It really felt like I was playing like a Final Fantasy version of Endgame, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie Endgame, because it was just like combining all of the story elements from all of the previous expansions and A Realm Reborn together to really wrap things up in a nice and interesting way. And I was enthralled. Like this Endwalker, I think, is a modern masterpiece. It's a game that I wish that more people could play. Not only because of the fact that queue times are long, but I just know that there are so many people out there that just aren't into MMOs. Come on with the fact that not everyone wants to sink their time into this, 200 to 400 hour experience. If you want to play, if you just want to mainline the MSQ, just mainline the story. That's that playtime you're looking at. But I promise you, if you actually put the time in to commit to that, like the payoff is huge. I mean, the fact that they pull so much from that, it just feels like they totally nailed everything with this, and I love how it all tied together and kind of wrapped everything up in a nice, neat bow. So there you go. I know I'll be talking about that more on our Game of the Year show, so I don't want to kind of linger with it too long. And I'm kind of ready to take a break from Endwalker as well, because I did kind of play it a lot, not only this year but just this week in particular. So go ahead.
I'm so happy that it stuck the landing for you, because I feel like, I don't know, I have this tendency to put a lot of emphasis on beginnings and endings, and like a bad ending can kind of sour my overall feelings about a game, regardless of the overall quality. I don't know why, it's just the way my brain works. So I'm so happy to hear that Endwalker is this monumental achievement, and I can't wait to keep going with Final Fantasy XIV. I still have my subscription, and I just need to jump back in. It's staggering for me that Square Enix has suspended sales of the game for the next few days again because it is too successful.
Yep.
What a problem to have. What a fantastic issue that you have so many people vying to play your game that you're going to be like, we have to stop selling it. Mm-hmm. We can't get enough server capacity to let everybody in like this. I can't wait to jump back into this. And it's from people that I trust the most, like yourself and my co-host Darren. Especially Darren has like a tendency to be rough on games. He can be, he has like a high bar for you to cross. And like everybody, he told me, he's like, all the hype is 100% worth it. All the hype is actually true about this game. I can't wait to keep going, to jump back in. And I'm so happy that it lands for you, Ryan, because I know how much you were looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I actually had the same worry as you, where again, like when you're watching a trilogy, for example, or playing a trilogy of video games, like they don't always stick the landing. In fact, more often than not, they don't. Like examples being kind of the Return of the Jedi, or the Rise of Skywalker, or Mass Effect 3. Like there's a lot of examples of games that don't stick the landing, but at the same time, there's lots of good examples too, like Return of the King. I thought like really stuck the landing, or something like. Some other stuff as well. So yeah, whereas again, if you look at something like Spider-Man 3, going back to even the Spider-Man talk from earlier, it's just like they couldn't stick to the landing with that. But yeah, I had some worries about that. Like maybe this would be not be able to stick the landing, and combined with the fact that it was kind of like this story about like the end of the world, essentially, which end of the world stories I know always hit or miss for me as well. Mm-hmm. But No, they totally nailed it with this one, and I'm very excited to hear what people have to say about this game because there's some stuff to talk about. I know we're actually going to be doing like a review and a spoiler cast for it on the RPG Cave in the next year with a couple guest hosts. So we'll be talking about that more there. If people in the community are playing it, I'd love to hear from them as well to kind of know what other people's thoughts are, especially because like I've beaten this game, Matt, and I have no one to talk to. I just want to talk about it. But yeah, so I'm so excited for people to get a chance to play this one, and we'll go from there. And hopefully they do the offline thing that they're doing with Dragon Quest X, which is coming out in Japan later next year, where it's going to be kind of an offline version of Dragon Quest X that you can kind of play single player without having to do any of the MMO stuff. Because I think this is one of the best stories in gaming. It needs to be preserved in a way that is accessible to everyone, not just anyone who likes MMOs. So there you go. That's all I'm going to say. Let's slam the brakes on this conversation, Matt. It's time for some breaking news. And we actually have like 2 weeks of stories to kind of go through this week just because we were off last week because the Game Awards happened. We did our prediction show and we got most of our predictions wrong, Matt. But you know what? Doesn't matter. We still had fun anyways. Of course, Matt just got back from getting married again. So congrats again. And
thank you.
Let's begin with a story I was hoping we would hear at some point about, and then I was very surprised that it came out the other day. Sony has announced new controller colors and faceplates for the PlayStation 5. There will be 5 new colors for the console plates: Midnight Black, Cosmic Red, Nova Pink, Starlight Blue, and Galactic Purple. All colors will have DualSense controllers and faceplates associated with them and are available for pre-order now, unless you live in Canada, in which case we can only get 2 of the 5 colors of faceplates, because, of course, the 3 colors that I really want are the 3 that aren't available right now. We've only got, the Midnight Black and the Cosmic Red to go with, which I think are cool colors, but I wish that we had more access to the rest of the colors. But then all the new DualShocks are out. Like the Cosmic Purple, I think, looks like really awesome, and then the Starlight Blue looks really cool as well. I even like the pink controller as well. But Matt, what do you think about this news that we've finally got console covers for our PlayStation 5 from Sony?
It is a long time coming, and I'm very, very happy that it's finally starting to be a thing. Similarly to you, I actually genuinely like all 5 of these colors. I think they all look fantastic in their own right. As for me, the Starlight Blue and the Galactic Purple are my kind of 2 standouts, with the Midnight Black being very closely in third. I'm probably going to be picking up multiple and then just having like 2 plates from different colors on and kind of swapping them out as I see fit, just because I do really like the way that they look. Same thing with the controllers. I genuinely want the blue, the purple, and the pink. I think they all look fantastic. My issue with them is, as we alluded to when we had this conversation just a few weeks ago, is the pricing that we were a little bit nervous about going into it. $55.99 US for the plates, which is going to be $69.99 Canadian. $70. It's almost a full priced game for 2 pieces of plastic. Like, that price is steep. I think it's too much. I think that, like we were saying, like, that $30 price spot would have been perfect, but again, I was anticipating $50 Canadian. $70 Canadian is, especially once you factor in taxes and everything, it's a bit of a difference. So I'm a little disappointed in the price, because I don't think there's any reason for these to be as expensive as they are. Problem is that they're going to sell, right? I mean, the price isn't really going to affect on how well they're going to do, because I'm sure lots of people have already pre-ordered. I have my eye on it as well. I just need to get over my own mental block now, because I do want them. That's the problem. They made these colors so nice, Ryan, that I don't want to spend $70 on them, let alone $140, because I want 2 different colors very badly.
But they know we will.
They know we will, and that's exactly the issue. So I love what they're doing. I love that the faceplates are finally here. I love the variety of the colors, and that they're coming out the gate with 5. I was a little worried they were going to be like, here's one color and then here's another color 7 months later. So I like what they're doing. I just wish the price was different. What about you, my friend? Where are you at on these?
So at first my reaction was the price was pretty high, but then I went and compared the price of third-party faceplates, like the D-brand ones in particular, as well as some other companies' ones, and they're also just as expensive. Like the D-brand ones in particular were I think $3 or $4 cheaper than the Sony first-party price. So at that point, essentially they looked at D-brand's pricing or pricing of these already and just tacked $5 on it and just called it a day. Which again, you could argue that is too expensive, but I think that they already saw that people were willing to pay that price with companies like D-Brand that were willing to provide this service. And I think they took that idea and were like, yeah, we know this is the price that people will pay for these. We'll just, add a little more premium factor to it in the price, I guess. And because again, they look at it probably as it being like, it's coming from a first party, so we can, increase the price a little bit, just like we see with, third party controllers. Like when Mad Catz was around, or whatever, Power A, I guess, when Power A brings out a controller, it's usually about $5 cheaper or $10 cheaper than the first party controllers. So I would imagine that's why they took this approach with it, which is why I feel less bad about the price when I kind of thought about it at least a little bit in that regard, because I mean, when you think about that, it makes more sense, which is why, again, I'm probably going to buy one and just call it a day. And I really have my eyes on the purple one. I think that's the one I really want. I just hope they actually end up selling it at some point. Who knows? Maybe by the time this goes up, maybe it'll be live. But we'll see. But either way, the controllers themselves really awesome too. But they're also super expensive because they're almost $100 Canadian before taxes. So there's that too. But I'm going to bring in Foolish Fuji at @foolish_Fuji on Twitter, who asks an interesting question and something we didn't bring up as well. With the new colored covers and controllers coming out, do you see Sony potentially creating special edition cover and controller sets in the future? For instance, a Spider-Man design when Spider-Man 2 comes out. I love this idea. I think we talked about this before when we talked about kind of the idea of Sony maybe selling their faceplates, because then, of course, they wouldn't need to sell a special edition console. They could just sell the special edition faceplate, and then they know probably people would buy them. But what do you think about this idea, Matt? Because I think it's a pretty good idea, but what do you think?
I love this. I really sincerely hope that this is going to be a thing, because far too often you pick up a console at launch because, again, you want to play the games, and then a year later they're like, but here's this new special edition that also looks amazing. I would love for them to be able to do this, to say, here is the special edition console if you're buying it now, but for the owners that already have stuff, here are the cool plates. Whether they're actually going to do it or not, I honestly can't land on a proper decision in my mind, just because I can totally see them being like, want the special stuff, buy the special console and leave it at that. And that wouldn't necessarily surprise me, while it would disappoint me. I would love for them to do this. And I would even, again, we were just talking about price, and I'll get over it, but I wouldn't mind even paying a little bit of a premium for these special edition plates, because I'm sure that's what they're going to do. I really hope they do it. I think the biggest question for me is kind of how this support kind of continues on in the next little while, because I wouldn't be surprised, again, if they just leave it at these 5 for the next year, and then in August or September, they're here's a couple more. I would love for this to be a more regular thing, because I don't really see why it can't be. So if they do this, and I really, really do hope they do, because I would love Spider-Man plates or Persona plates along with the controller. I hope they do it. I just really don't know if they will, Ryan. Where are you on this?
Yeah, I would love for them to do this as well. I know that they love to sell their special edition consoles, but I think what's going to happen is it's just going to depend on where PlayStation 5 supply is going to be in the next year or two. For example, when Horizon comes out, I think it's more likely that they do a Horizon faceplate rather than doing a Horizon console, because, I mean, we saw what happened with Xbox with the Halo Edition console. No one has that console because, they made so few of them, and they're so hard to find as it is. And I imagine that situation would even be doubly so for the PlayStation 5 in its current state. So, again, if we get to this point in the year, if we're in this state by this time next year, when God of War is out and stuff like that, I expect though they're going to do special edition plates for those games, as opposed to them releasing a special edition console, just because I think it makes more viable sense anyways from the production standpoint, because then they can just keep churning out the consoles all in one SKU rather than changing them up, and while also diversifying things as well and kind of making their own faceplates to go along with it. But I think
they could very easily do the whole, here's a PS5 bundle with God of War and the God of War faceplates on top of the white faceplates, and there you have a nice little markup for themselves as well.
There's that too. And then you'll have to buy, of course, an extra controller, an extra game, because all of the stores are doing bundles now too. Because I mean, you can't actually buy a PlayStation 5 now besides buying it from a reseller on its own, without kind of a bundle. Sean Capri, I know, just bought his this week, and he had to buy an extra controller and a game with it as well. So yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing that's out there as well. But either way, I hope that they do this. I think it's a great idea, and we'll see. I know that Microsoft did that for the Xbox 360, and I think it worked out pretty well anyways with the faceplates. And they only discontinued them because they were moving on to the slim model, which you couldn't take the faceplate off of it. So I hope they go down that route. But next up, we should talk about the Game Awards, Matt, because the Game Awards happened, of course, last week. And we should talk quickly about kind of some of the winners and what we thought, and then we'll talk about some of the announcements as well. So first off, as far as Sony was concerned, as far as Sony first-party titles at the event, there really weren't that many winners from Sony first-party games. They were nominated for a lot of stuff. Like Ratchet & Clank was nominated for a lot of awards, and Returnal was nominated for a few, but for the most part, we didn't really take too many home. However, Returnal won Best Action Game at the awards as well. We also had Kena Bridge of Spirits won 2 awards, Best Independent Game and Best Debut Indie. But then for the most part, we also had, of course, console exclusives like Deathloop win Best Art Direction and then Best Game Direction, as well as Final Fantasy XIV winning Best Community Support and, of course, Best Ongoing Game, which, of course, just was music to my ears. I was so happy to see it win. But then beyond that, honestly, it was actually a Microsoft dominated show. Because first of all, you could argue, Deathloop being a Microsoft title, but then also, Forza Horizon 5 was one of the big winners with 3 of the awards. And then Halo, of course, winning kind of the Player's Choice Award. But as well, we had Game of the Year go to It Takes Two, which we'll talk about in a second. So Matt, what do you think about PlayStation at the Game Awards? And do we feel like that anything got snubbed? What'd you think?
I think PlayStation is very much in a bit of a holding pattern right now. I don't think they're ready to show anything more than what they did. In terms of the awards, again, like I'm not terribly disappointed with the list. In terms of snubs, I don't know how I feel about It Takes Two being the game of the year. Again, because I do think that there is a lot of value in its gameplay. I just think that there were some other ones that deserve things a little bit more. Otherwise, I don't know. I just thought Deathloop should have won a little bit more than it did. That game has a very soft spot for me, more so than I thought. But yeah, and I think Ratchet and Clank deserved a little bit more as well too. While it is just a Ratchet game, quote unquote, I do feel like it did a lot really well, and I do feel like it was visually beautiful and stuff. I don't know. I just feel like PlayStation's just chilling for now. I think they're kind of slowing down until Horizon is ready to come out swinging in February. And I really do feel like next year is going to be huge. And I feel next year is going to be a massive year for PlayStation. I just think right now they're in rest. They're waiting. They're biding their time. But what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, same here. I think next year is going to be kind of the big year for PlayStation at the Game Awards again. Their big kind of return to the show with all of the big exclusives that are coming. Presuming again, of course, they all come out next year. I mean, to be fair, at this point, the only one I'm worried about is God of War. Maybe slipping to 2023 at this point, but Horizon and Gran Turismo seem pretty locked, and I imagine those 2 games in particular, even if those are the only 2 games that come out from Sony first party, are going to be 2 of the highest rated games of the year, I would imagine, especially because Gran Turismo always tracks well both with critics and fans, and then of course Horizon, especially after the first one, I would imagine, unless somehow Guerrilla screws it up, which I don't think they will, I think it's going to rate really well as well. It'll probably be one of the highest Metacritic games of the year as well. So yeah, I think even with just those 2 in particular, they'll probably dominate a lot of the awards next year. And then of course, if we got God of War, that's just going to be the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae, so to speak. But I'm also curious to know what else will be coming out of Sony first party, or what else they're going to publish as well next year, or even from third party exclusives, stuff like Forspoken, because that's kind of a wild card at this point. We saw a new trailer for it at the Game Awards, and it looks like it's going to be fun, but that dialogue, I still think it's questionable. What's going to happen with that, as well as some any other third party exclusives that we don't know about yet. Maybe Final Fantasy 16 comes out next year, but probably not, or whatever else they've got up their sleeve that they haven't announced yet. So either way, I think it will be a big year for PlayStation next year. But yeah, this year I think it was kind of reflective of the fact that we really had Sony first party games come out until July, and then they kind of stopped from there. And we didn't have too many of them to begin with. So, yeah.
Yep.
I know a lot of people were kind of upset, too, that Returnal didn't get nominated for a lot of stuff. And I can understand that sentiment as well.
Yeah. I think Final Fantasy XVI is going to be a real dark horse next year. I really do think that. I do think that's imminent. I think it's coming a lot faster than I think people expect. And I think it's really going to blow people away. I don't know. I have this feeling that that's going to be a really massive moment, especially because, how how tepid the reaction was to Final Fantasy 15 at its launch, and now it's celebrated much more. And I really loved Final Fantasy 15 for what it was. I think 16 is coming, and I think we could see it have its almost like Tales of Arise-esque moment next year, where I think it's going to get a lot of recognition from a lot of people who may not be in the genre or who might not play much. I think Final Fantasy 16 really stands a chance to make some waves next year, and I hope it does. I hope it comes out.
I'm only on the boundary of it coming out next year because of the fact that it's the Final Fantasy 14 team doing it, and with all the stuff that's all of the all hands on deck approach to Endwalker right now because of the maintenance and stuff like that.
True.
That's why I expect it might actually slip to 2023, whereas it was probably planned to come out next year. But I'm also really excited to see what people think of it because, I mean, again, I've been raving about Final Fantasy 14 for how long now? Like seeing that team do like a single player RPG and that will probably appeal to more people or people that different audience than the MMO crowd. Like I'm really excited to see what people think about that game for sure. But let's talk about some of the announcements from the awards as well that kind of related to PlayStation. Again, believe it or not, a lot of the announcements that were at the showcase were either PC related or coming to Switch or Xbox announcements. So we actually don't have a ton of Sony stuff to talk about. Of course, we're not going to talk about, trailers that we already saw, like for Forspoken and stuff like that for games we already knew about. But Persona 4 Arena Ultimax coming to PlayStation 4 on March 17th. This was the second of the 7 Persona announcements that we're getting as part of the, 20th anniversary of Persona. I'm super excited that this game's coming because this was actually one of my favorite fighting games on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generations. I think it's actually a really great game that holds up really well. In fact, I talked about this on an entire episode of the Crossroads that we did, which was our Xbox 360 series over on the Xbox Drive, where I kind of just gushed about this game for 15 minutes. So you can go over there and listen to that if you want. But I think it's a fantastic game and definitely well worth your time, especially if you like fighting games from Arc System Works, because again, it's an Arc System Works fighting game featuring all the Persona characters from Persona 3 and 4, and it's a ton of fun. So I recommend people check this out if you like fighting games and Persona. But Matt, I don't think did you play this one? What'd you think?
I think I played a little bit of it, and I think I just fell off just because I think I was in university at the time and things were a little bit chaotic. I'm so in on this, Ryan. Like I love Persona. Obviously, it's my favorite franchise of all time, and for me to be able to jump back into this and experience the story in a way that like I got pretty much missed out on the first time. And I mean, if Persona has taught me anything, I will play anything with Persona on it, regardless of the genre. And Arc System Works is already, they're the best. So I'm excited to finally jump into this. A confusing announcement, honestly, for me. I really thought that a Persona 5 fighting was more imminent than bringing this back. And this kind of cast doubt on whether Persona 5 fighting is a thing for me now. I just don't know if it's going to happen if they're deciding to bring this one back instead. But yeah, I'm stoked for it. I'm excited. I'm just a little confused. I was a little shocked that this is what the one of the ones that they're bringing forward. But again, it's not to speak to the game's quality. Just again, I thought we would be getting something new.
Yeah, or like even like an updated version of the roster that would include Persona 5 characters, I think would be interesting too. But they didn't announce any new characters or anything like that would be coming with this as well. It just sounds like it's going to be a straight port with some updated visuals. But either way, I think it's a game that's worth playing, especially if you like the Persona story too, because it actually has like a really good story to it. Which again, for a fighting game, I know it sounds crazy, but it's got a very Persona story that kind of takes place after Persona 4 and kind of tells what happens to a lot of the characters after that game kind of ends, which is really interesting as well. And then the Persona 3 characters kind of coming into their world, kind of meet up with them was interesting too. So definitely check that out if you like Persona. Next up, Alan Wake 2 was officially announced. It is a survival horror game. So they're actually moving away from it being kind of an action shooter and more in the survival horror direction. It will come sometime in 2023. Again, we didn't really see any gameplay or anything like that. It's more just concept trailer with just Alan Wake just standing there in the middle of the town. And that was all we really saw from it. So Matt, are you excited about this? What do you think?
I have no particular feelings about this one. I've never played Alan Wake. It's always a game that I've heard a lot about, and we just got the remaster.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's like, if I find an open spot, I've always been curious about it. I might play the remaster before this, but for me, it's like, yeah, it's cool it exists, and I'm happy for the fans of the franchise because I know they've been asking for this for quite some time, but just doesn't really do much for me. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm more excited about this than I would have normally been for Alan Wake 2 because I liked the first one, but I didn't really love the combat, but I loved the idea that was almost like a Stephen King video game in a lot of ways, where essentially you were playing as an author kind of trapped in his own story, which was just like a really unique concept for a game. But them going in the direction of survival horror, which is one of my favorite genres in video games, like sign me up. Like I'm actually really excited because again, I liked the story and the writing from the first game. It was just kind of the combat that kind of felt flat. So with them refining that combat and kind of making it a survival horror game, I think is going to do wonders for this game. And I think it's going to find maybe a new audience that it didn't find before. So I'm actually pretty excited about this one and I can't wait to see more, but it's so far away that again, it's just like, I'm putting it to the back of my mind at this point because there's already enough games in 2022 I need to worry about at this point. And then speaking of 2022 games, our last one that I have to bring up, of course, because I have a soft spot for Sega and Sonic. Sonic Frontiers, a new open world Sonic game, was announced for fall 2022. We got a new trailer for it. Kind of looks like Breath of the Wild Sonic in a lot of ways, with kind of the way they were presenting it and kind of the way kind of the landscape looked. We didn't really see like gameplay as far as like how fast Sonic's going to move around this world or like what the combat's going to look like, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about this one. I'm excited to see what Sega does with it. Matt, did Sonic do anything for you? What do you think?
I'm actually excited about this one too, Ryan, believe it or not. I've loved Sonic for quite a long time. And funny enough, there was a leak a few months ago that dove into a lot of what this game is. And now as we're getting more and more information, it does seem like it was true. Evidently it was from a play tester who did play kind of a chunk of the beginning area and a chunk of a little bit later. And they said it was solid. It was okay. So I'm and again, granted, they played probably an early build. So I'm curious to see what this looks like. Because the thing that I'm most curious about, Ryan, and you alluded to it as well, is how the movement is going to be in this game. Sonic is known for his ridiculous speed. If he's like running at the speed of a horse that you would in like Breath of the Wild, I think it's going to be a little bit disappointing and a little bit boring. And one of the things that, to bring it up quickly, the Forspoken trailer made me a little bit anxious just because of how we got that 4-minute gameplay trailer and it looks just a lot of moving fast through an empty open world. And that's what kind of one of my biggest worries is with Sonic Frontiers is that like how alive is the world is going to feel, how fun is the movement, because like games like Spider-Man nail movement where it's so fun just going from point A to point B. And my expectation would be with a Sonic game in the speed of it all to also feel similar. But if you're going to be tripping over things a lot, if you're going to like run into walls and not be able to kind of streak up them as Sonic is known to do, I'm excited about this because I love the idea of what this is. The movement is the biggest thing for me. Clunky combat, a weird story, whatever. But if they nail the momentum and the feeling of being Sonic, then I'm in.
Yeah. I think there's a great idea here, and I just hope they can execute it on it as well. I'll say. And again, it's just, we have reason to be speculative because, this is the same team that made Sonic Forces, which was not a good game. So you never know. But again, maybe just all they needed was, a fresh new idea and, maybe that's all they needed to make this work. So those were kind of the announcements I picked from the Game Awards. Again, there was some smaller stuff, but we kind of do need to wrap the show soon. But before we do that, Matt, I know I had some other stories on the dock, but I gotta ask you about this one because I kind of alluded to you on last night's recording of the Game of the Year show. But we got to talk about Abandoned, Matt's favorite subject in the whole wide world. So this week, Blue Box Studios announced that a prologue chapter for Abandoned is coming early in 2022 with more info available shortly. I already see you celebrating, Matt. How excited are you to play some Abandoned next year?
I can't wait to see how long was that first teaser? Like 30 seconds?
No, it wasn't even 30 seconds. It was literally like 5 seconds.
5 seconds. So I'm so excited for the 17-second trailer that we're probably going to get. I have no idea what that team is doing, but I'm so in for the ride. The ridiculousness of this entire story is something that's one of my favorite parts, Ryan, of the PlayStation Drive of 2021 so far. Whatever is going on with it, I have no idea. I don't even know if I don't even care about what the game is anymore. I'm just in for the ride. So give me it. I'm going to try it out. Whatever it is, I'm here for it at this point.
Yeah, it's I'm interested to try this out too, because then we'll finally actually see what this gosh darn game actually is. But I just think it's hilarious that we finally had been waiting someone had been waiting anyways for more info about Abandoned for a while, and they finally actually updated us on what's going on with this game. So there you go. That's our weekly check-in on Abandoned and Blue Box Studios. Who knows what happens next from here, Matt? But
thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Before we go, though, real quick, we didn't talk about Project Spartacus, which was the rumored new PlayStation Game Pass kind of successor that is supposedly coming soon. I would imagine we're kind of going to wait for our full discussion about that with when some of the details come out. But apparently, it's going to be a service that combines PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now together, and then offering not just PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games, but also PS1 and PS2 games on the service as well. And it's going to be like a tiered service, so you're going to pay for different tiers for it. But Matt, what's your quick read on that idea, and what do you think?
I really hope it's real. I really, really hope it's real. I would subscribe to that thing. I'd imagine upgrade my Plus subscription in a heartbeat. I really want them to do this. I really want them to treat this as a true Game Pass competitor. I don't want them to kind of just throw this out there because people are expecting them to do something. I want them to support this properly. While I'm not getting my expectations up for day one first party stuff, I just do hope that it is a more robust and complete service than PlayStation Now is in its current state. I want them to be more inclined to third party with more indies. Get some indies day one. Get some cool stuff going day one. First party, if it doesn't come day one, that's fine. But I want them to step into the ring a little bit more because Game Pass is owning the conversation, and that's fantastic because the service is amazing and it's totally worth your money. I just want, again, competition just breeds better things from both of them. So I hope this is true, and I hope they're ready because I'm in.
Yeah, same here. Like sounds like the dream service for someone like me who loves old games, combined with the fact that I would love to kind of like have PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus kind of be one thing as it is. Like it's all like whenever we'd get a question about like whether we would entertain this idea, like this is always the type of service I would have described. So on the show before, like you've heard us talk about it before. So yeah, like I'm all in if they do it this way as well. Like I will subscribe to whatever the highest tier is to get PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games because that's how I'm excited for that. But anyways, Matt, we got to go. But before we go, Matt, plugs go.
Yeah, you can find me over on youtube.com/burnoutbrighter or on the Burnout Brighter podcast on whatever podcast service that you like to use.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Yumi Capriz, on YouTube at youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Matt Sawinski, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 31 of the PlayStation Drive, and we're out. The PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri, and I want to say thank you to each and every one of our patrons from the bottom of my heart from your support across all of our content. And let's start by thanking our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown over at youtube.com/PM Entertainment. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and our gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Emily O'Kelly, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Benji Kong, Marcus O'Neill, RJ Kern, Dano, Skinny Matt, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, Fulia Fuji, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support.